All right, how's it going, y'all? So today I'm trying to answer a really commonly asked question, is Synology's Quick Connect secure? And so that's going to be the purpose of this video. And to start off, we're actually going to have to kind of go a quick overview of what Quick Connect is. So Quick Connect is essentially a really easy way to find your Synology wherever you are. It is designed to work and kind of be dummy proof. You essentially just set up a Quick Connect and Synology will handle the rest. No matter where you are, if you're at your local network, if you're remote, it will find a way to connect you to your NAS. And it's also going to do a really good job of pretty much making sure you're on the fastest possible connection to your NAS. So the way you access it is two different ways. First off, it's kind of default whenever you're setting up a NAS for the first time. It says, hey, do you want to set up Quick Connect on there? And then after the fact, you find it in Control Panel under External Access. So this right here is Quick Connect. And as I said earlier, it's got a lot of great benefits. You can see right here, I'm using it to directly connect to the NAS, and even better, it realized I was on the same network as the NAS. And so this 10.30.0.106 means that I'm actually directly talking to it locally. The other thing that it's done is if we click on it right here, we can see that it has a fully signed SSL certificate, another great benefit. So without us doing anything other than hitting a single button, Synology handles all of this for us. The Quick Connect handles all of it, so we're not going to get that, hey, this is an unsecure connection or anything like that. It does it all for us. But this does come with some security implications. To be a one-word answer, is Quick Connect secure? I would say yes, but it is less secure than no port forwarding at all. So whenever you enable Quick Connect, you're pretty much always allowing external access to your NAS. That is just part of it, because Quick Connect allows you to access the NAS whenever you are on the road without having to set up a VPN or anything like that. You don't even actually have to set up port forwarding. So Quick Connect always gives you external access to the NAS. That's really what it's used for. And that in and of itself comes with some security implications. Effectively, it will always be less secure than having zero external access to the NAS. That's just the truth of it. So by enabling Quick Connect versus having absolutely zero external access to your NAS, you're really opening up two possible avenues that you could possibly be hacked. I'm not saying these are necessarily likely, but these are the two avenues that really get opened up. The first is the most simple, and it's actually the only one that's ever been exploited on a Synology, and that is brute force password guessing. So Quick Connect allows your NAS to be open to the internet. Means that now people outside of your local network can start seeing the NAS and start interacting with it. Basically, they get to the login page. So essentially, if we go in and we just sign out here, essentially, if somebody goes through and does a brute force lookups and figures out what your Quick Connect is, they can get to this page right here. Synology does do a lot of stuff in the back end trying to limit this, and it's actually surprisingly effective. They do a really good job of limiting it overall, but obviously they can't do everything. But they can get to this page assuming they know your Quick Connect ID. Then they can start password guessing. That is avenue one that people could start attacking your NAS and possibly an avenue for hacking. And that right there is actually the only time Synologies actually have been hacked, is from people opening them up to the internet and then having the username of admin and the password of admin, which was the old default username and password back in, I think, DSM-5. They then would update and never change the username or password. And so that would be on the internet. They would open it up online, and then people were guessing that. And that's really the most common avenue and also the easiest one to defeat. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign back in there. And as long as you have a somewhat strong password and a username that's not admin, it's pretty easy to protect yourself from this. You just go into Control Panel, Security, Protection, and by default, you have this right here. By forcing people to have only 10 login attempts within 5 minutes, it would take an adversary a very, very, very long time, even if they knew your username, to be able to guess your password, assuming it's more than like 6 characters. It is just one of those things where unless it's a dumb, simple password, it's just not gonna happen. It would take multiple years and years and years of straight attacking for that to happen. And so that is why you always wanna make sure to have auto block enabled just to shut that avenue down. The other thing that can also happen is if you've got users and one of them accidentally like shares it online or something, there is a higher chance there. But there's a lot that the attacker would have to know for that to happen. They'd have to know where this is. They'd have to know what the Quick Connect address is. They'd have to know about Synology. They'd have to know what this user does. They'd have to have a lot more information than just some dummy in an adversary country just brute forcing their way into everything. And it's really, that's a targeted attack. That's pretty unlikely. And more likely than not, your company's not large enough to really have that. Though in larger companies, make sure you have things like two-factor authentication because that can protect from that very well. So that's the realistic thing that you need to worry about and you can protect yourself from. The second piece is something you can really not protect yourself from, and that is the unknown of Synology. So Synology has shown itself to be a very secure company. They put money in, they put their money where their mouth is. If you report a vulnerability to Synology, they have a bounty program. So you can go in here into Synology, and you can see down here, there's this bounty program. And if you find a vulnerability within Synology DSM, they will pay you up to $20,000. They clearly have a lot of incentive here, and they're clearly doing stuff that is attempting to make their services as secure as possible. And so that's a really good sign overall. Synology, from their track record, has never actually been directly attacked. I've got no knowledge of a known exploit ever being used other than password guessing. There have been times where there's a vulnerability announced, but it is patched very quickly, and I do not know of a single time that somebody's actually hacked into a NAS that was not just like on a control server as a proof of exploit. Synology clearly spent a lot of time and puts their money where their mouth is, and they really do a good job of security. That being said, there's still the huge unknown where anything can happen. And to be fair, the same thing can happen with Google Drive or Dropbox, but those tend to be larger companies and tend to be a little bit more secure because they've got full access to things. But with Synology DSM, there is always the inherent unknown that one day there is a bug found on that sign-in page that allows somebody to get super admin access immediately without having to do anything. It's very unlikely. The most likely case is it would actually be a user could authenticate over their current capability, but having Quick Connect open or close isn't really going to help you from that because, well, if your user is attacking you, you've got bigger problems. But that is still always an unknown. And so you have to question that. For businesses who can completely go off of Quick Connect, don't need to share files with anybody else or anything like that, and already have a good VPN setup, if it's working for you, keep it. There's no reason to enable it unless you have it. But for the vast majority of people, I would say overall Quick Connect is pretty secure and overall pretty safe. I'm going to touch on how it works really quickly now, just to kind of give an overview of it. And so Synology has this great white paper that you can download, the Synology Quick Connect white paper. And it pretty much talks about how Quick Connect works. So Quick Connect works with 3 different attempts to join a request. So first off, it's going to check and see if you're on the local network of the NAS. If it does, that's when you get this address up here. You see that local IP address right there? That means, hey, I found that this is local. I'm going to talk to it locally to get the fastest possible speeds. And then if you're not on the local network, it's then going to try the public IP address of your house. It's going to say, well, maybe if he's not on the LAN, well, maybe he's opened up the ports properly and I can access it there. And so if you have, it will just actually do a direct connection and not go through any of Synology's servers. And then after that, I'm actually going to switch diagrams because this one helps a little bit more. It's going to try 2 things. It's going to try to do what's called a hole punch. This is a hole punch that essentially has the NAS ask your firewall, hey, can I open up this port for this specific user? And then use that. And so that the way a hole punch works is your computer asks the server, hey, I'd like to talk to the NAS. And then the server comes down and talks to the NAS and says, hey, ask your router to open up this port and for this client. Then if that happens, from there, the client is able to directly communicate in the same sense of opening up a port directly with the NAS. It's got a virtual tunnel there, and none of the data has to go through the Synology relay servers anymore. It is all direct connect, pretty much the same speed as if the port was open publicly. And so this is awesome if it does work, but if it doesn't work and in my case, I've not found it works with a lot of routers. It has to go through what's called a relay server. A relay server still allows you to access your NAS and still use Synology to drive and everything, but it requires going through one of Synology's servers. The nice thing is it's completely encrypted with SSL, so you really don't have to worry about it too much, in the same way that it's just kind of passing through another hop of the internet. It just happens to hop through a hop of the Synology relay server. It is fully encrypted with SSL, so Synology cannot decrypt any of this traffic, but it does go through Synology's relay servers, which mean that you do get a slowdown penalty. And especially in non-US countries, like, it's a lot slower because essentially Synology has to foot this bill. And so they're not going to give you 1 gig up and down through there because that'll cost them a lot of money. And so it's pretty limited. For simple photo sharing, it's fine, but for anything else, it can be quite slow. And so that's how Quick Connect works. All that being said, all that advanced science behind it, it's essentially a way to access the NAS outside your house. And so really what you're having to do here is you're having to ask yourself, is Synology DSM secure? Personally for me, I have Quick Connect enabled. Whenever I share files with a client, I use Quick Connect because it's an easy way for me to guarantee that it works. It's also me putting my money where my mouth is. I use Quick Connect to share files. I have read through and I've looked at as much security stuff I've seen from Synology, and they've got a very good track record. But that's really what you have to go off of. As long as you have secure passwords, enabling Quick Connect is really just going to be you giving yourself the vulnerability that one day Synology could be hacked. So if you do have Quick Connect enabled, the one thing that can really help you is going to Control Panel, and under Updates, you want to set up probably your update settings to be this. Essentially automatically install important updates, security vulnerabilities, and that will make you feel a lot better. The other thing is you probably want to at least kind of keep an ear on the ground. Maybe subscribe on Reddit to r/Synology or something, just where if anything crazy happens with Synology, these bugs don't just all of a sudden hit everybody at the exact same time. It tends to be, oh hey, a few people start reporting it, and you have a while before it would probably hit your NAS, because it tends to be just like a small group of people who are going one after the other. So it's not a bad idea to just keep your eye on the ground. The other thing you can do is make a really long Quick Connect address. If you've got a 15 character, that'd be really long and really annoying, Quick Connect address, they're not going to get to you for a very, very, very long time because there's no just single list. Synology's done a great job of obscuring Quick Connect addresses. So there's no just single list that's publicly accessible, at least not one that I've been able to grab, that will actually tell you what all the Quick Connect addresses are. So if you have a very long Quick Connect address, it's kind of in a sense like a password. They first got to figure out what that is with limited retries actually, which is awesome, before they're able to even see your NAS. So in summation, Quick Connect is something that I believe to be secure enough to use. It is not something that is completely bulletproof and always inherently will give you additional risk versus having zero external access to your NAS or access to your NAS through a very secure VPN provider. But other than that, I believe Quick Connect is secure enough for the vast majority of users. Obviously, for multi-billion-dollar corporations with thousands upon thousands of employees, it's probably a good idea to have a better system than that. But for the average business, Quick Connect has shown itself to be very useful and very simple to administer. So I would not lose too much sleep about it. Just make sure to keep your NAS up to date just in case anything ever is discovered that is exploitable. All right, well, that's going to be it for this tutorial, kind of overview. Go and leave any other questions you got for me in the comments below. And if you want to hire me, there's a link for that in the description. All right, have a good one. Bye.